Alrighty, so Naruto is 20 years old as of about a month ago, and with me I have the one, the only, Mark, the Dragon Ball Dad. How are you, sir?
Hello, everybody. Great to be here. Big fan of the channel, so hopefully you enjoy this discussion. I've just read Naruto and I had a great time reading it. It really deserves the status that it has.
Awesome. So I was curious because I had assumed that you had read or watched Naruto, and so I was shocked to hear that this was your first. This was your first read through, right?
Yeah, my first ever read through, my first experience of the full story. I played a little bit of the Storm games, and that kind of piqued my interest, but I never ever dived into the series until last week, and then I did all 700 chapters in a week.
So my first question is, what drew you to do that read through? Was it like a fan that said you should read Naruto? Was it, it's such a big series, I think it's about time I start reading it? Or was it just something about the series that you're like, no, I think I'd like to give this a try?
I always really enjoyed the games, and that kind of took me to be interested in the series. I did try the anime a long time ago, but never really give it a chance. So I wanted to go in manga form, and I really, really loved it. I'd read One Piece this year, so the idea of reading all the big three in 1 year was kind of something I'm going to try and do this year.
Okay, all right, I can see that. Where did you stop in the anime?
Literally, I only watched like one episode, and then never picked it back up until I started reading, and I've been watching like the big moments along with the read to kind of get that visualization of it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, most of the problems with the anime don't even come up until like the Shippuden parts, so you really wouldn't have been able to critique it until then. But I think honestly, the manga is a better way to appreciate it because of those anime problems. But segueing into our next section, so Mark actually did his reaction to the series. I'm going to put that into the description. But let me ask you, what would you say were the strengths and weaknesses and maybe some of the high points of the entire series just in general?
I think Naruto is an absolutely fantastic protagonist. I think the story of him being an orphan, being discriminated against, being hated upon is something that everyone can relate to, and the way that he drives forward to follow his dream after he's been recognized and shown some love. I love the way that it shows how these like kind of stories of turmoil can go different ways with him and Sasuke. Sasuke following the hate route. They're very much two sides of the same coin, and I love their journey. I think it's one of the greatest rivalries I have ever read. There's so much high points in this series. It's a lot of the emotional things it does so well. I mean, from the very first mission of Team 7, you get the whole Tabuza and Haku, and it's you find out that he's not the demon of the mist, that he really cares for Haku, and it goes further than that. It during the Chunin exams, when you get Lee versus Gaara and it's hard work versus genius, and you find out that hard work isn't always enough, and then you get Neji versus Naruto and it's destiny. Can you change that? And I adored that. And then you see Sasuke seduced by the dark side to kind of gain power. And when he first leaves Team 7, that broke my heart. You have the Naruto fight, and it kind of feels like in a typical shonen, you would have the protagonist go out and fight their friend and bring them back. But here, Naruto breaks his promise, and he is known for keeping his promises. He doesn't manage to bring Sasuke back until the very end of the story, and I think that was fantastically well done. Another highlight is definitely Itachi, Sasuke's brother. The twist with him was absolutely fantastic, and he's a very, very superb character. I never saw that coming. All the deaths are handled very, very superbly. Naruto finally meeting his parents was a real highlight too. There was so much greatness in there.
Yeah, I think you pointed out pretty much everything that hardcore Naruto fans would promote about the show and the manga. And I like that you brought up the emotional moments, because I think at the end of the day, that's what helps Naruto stand out against other shows, is those emotional moments and those like notoriously deep backstories is what helps fans connect to those characters. And when we look back at the show, it's those emotional backstories that we're just drawn to again and again, and then we see it repeat in our own lives. So I think that's probably Naruto's strongest suit. Now, you pointed out some of your favorite characters, but I'm curious, were there any characters that either in your later part of your reading or after you had finished reading, were there any characters that you were kind of disappointed by?
Probably the other member of Team Seven, Sasuke. I don't think she was used very well. Sakura, sorry. I don't think she was utilized to the full of her potential. She just basically was there to support Sasuke and Naruto, and it was more about how her love would never falter. She was an extremely strong character. She was trained under a Hokage, and I don't think we got the best from her. She had one really amazing fight against Sasoro, the Master of Puppets. That fight was absolutely fire, but other than that, I think they should have done more with the character.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with you. I find that too. I find that her fight with Sasori was actually a really good fight. When I watched it in the anime, I was like, okay, I see her character's making a comeback. And then that's it. She kind of just like dies off, and she's just the healer character, and she falls back into the trap of just hopelessly, for no good reason, in love with Sasuke. Whether you love Sasuke or not, like the whole thing with her and Sakura just ended up being, in my opinion, kind of stupid because it wasn't really based on anything that fans were interested in. Throughout the entire series, would you say that there was an arc that, without a doubt, was your number one favorite?
I think the entirety of part one is absolutely fire up until when Sasuke leaves. I think the only dull really is the beginning of the war arc. I don't know if it was a change of pace or there was something missing in the beginnings of the war arc. I think it picked up again once we had Itachi back and Madara. I thought that was some good stuff, but I think the early part of the manga is a lot better. The first 500 chapters are one of the best reads I've ever had, and then it kind of, I don't want to say that it went bad because it never went bad, but it dipped in quality.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same, and then almost everyone I've talked to would say the same. Generally, what I hear and what most fans would say is that the war wasn't necessarily bad. It was just by the time you get to that war, it kind of just feels like a totally different story. Would you agree? Would you say that by the time you get to that war and there's all these tailed beasts and tailed beast bombs and just how convoluted the plot got, would you say that it felt like a completely different story by the time you got to the war? Or would you say it was something else that made you not love it as much as the earlier parts of Naruto?
I can see why you say that because the power escalation is ridiculous. In Naruto, it goes so big, so fast. And I think the war arc there was so much going on. I think it was kind of crammed in a way because we had all the history of everybody ever, like generations of characters all becoming drawn into this story, and a story that people love because it was character driven. Making things this big scale kind of has its downfalls because I wanted to focus on Naruto and Sasuke, and when we had the moments that were just focused on those characters, that was when it was at its peak, I think. I mean, the supporting cast is very, very good, but they are kind of characters that are just used for their big moments more so than driving the story forward. So I think a lot of flashbacks in the later arc kind of slowed down the pace. I was interested to know about the stories between these characters of history, but I don't think we needed like 50 chapters on each of them, and I think the pacing just kind of fell off a little bit. It felt a little cramped to me. I don't know about you.
No, I typically, when I think of what made that last arc feel so like hard to read or hard to watch, was that Naruto starts out very simple, and then by the time you finish it, there's so many different plot lines and there's so many different issues that have to be settled. But by the time you get to the end, I don't know, to me it felt like one problem was being solved at a time, which it's easy to say in retrospect, but in retrospect I don't think that's the way it should have been done, only because I don't think that's how conclusions to stories usually go. It would be nice if conclusions to stories could just neatly be solved, but I think what naturally happens more often than not is that all those issues you have kind of chaotically get solved at once, whether you like how they get solved or not. And to me, when I was reading and watching the end, it like conveniently went, okay, so we have the tailed beast, that's going to get solved. Okay, and then we have Madara, and he's all powered up, so we're going to solve that next. And then, oh, by the way, the whole Six Sage and the history of ninjas. Oh, you have Kaguya, so now we're going to solve that next. Oh, and by the way, we've only been talking about the rivalry between Sasuke and Naruto for 700 volumes, 700 chapters. So let's just neatly wrap that up. And then, all right, we're done. That's Naruto. Thanks for sticking around 20 years. So that's what kind of disappointed me, was that it was a little too neat. What would you say?
I think the actual final fight between Sasuke and Naruto was really well done. They very, very had the emotion in there by giving us lots of flashbacks, and we knew that it's because they love each other that they are having this fight in a kind of twisted sort of way, and they both have very different visions of what a Hokage should be. Sasuke basically wants to be a dictator and rule through hate and fear and keep peace that way, whereas obviously Naruto was doing things the right way. So I think that final fight was very good. I don't know if we needed the war to get there, which is kind of a strange statement, but if we just had the Itachi stuff and we had Naruto training with Jiraiya after he defeated Pain, and then Jiraiya's dead at that point, but just straight after the Pain arc is what I'm trying to say here, because I thought the Pain arc was the perfect ending for Naruto's story. We'd seen him go through the suffering of losing Jiraiya. We'd seen him gain acceptance of the village, and that's what his story is about, more so than even becoming the Hokage. It's about being accepted after being an outsider, and we see the crowd throwing him in the air. I mean, that moment there, I felt like Naruto's story was complete, and at the same time we'd seen Sasuke find out about his brother, we'd seen Itachi die, we'd seen Sasuke decide that he was going to go against the village. So what I would have done is I would have had Sasuke come in straight after the Pain arc and fight Naruto at that point, and concluded it there, because I don't know if we needed the war arc. We'd seen Naruto gain acceptance, we'd seen Sasuke complete his revenge mission, albeit not in the way that he expected it. I don't know if we need the war arc.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it was really fun to watch. It's really cool to see all these characters come back. I mean, we can all say that one character didn't really need to come back over the other, but it was certainly cool to see all the Hokage fighting at once, and then all the Kages from the other nations fighting at once. Personally, I don't really think of Naruto's world building as like its strongest suit, only because like it all kind of came at the very end. Like I was saying before, it seemed like everything was like done a little too neatly, to the point where like I feel like we had only met the Sand Village very, very early on, and then the other villages we don't really even meet, with the exception of the Water Village, but we don't really meet the other villages until by the time that the series is pretty much over. And then when you do meet them, we kind of just get thrown all these characters at us at once in the war. So like the other Kages are cool to watch, but kind of just the same thing I've been beaten to death of. Like the war was entertaining, but plot wise it just felt like everything sort of just got thrown at us.
Yeah, the war felt like to me that, I don't know if the creator knew it was coming to an end, because I wasn't a fan back then, but it seems to me that he knew he had a time limit and he just wanted to give us a load of fan service, because that's what it kind of felt like. It was like every character that you've loved who's died is going to appear here. We're going to get those interactions between Itachi and Sasuke. They were the highlight of the war, but just things like that seemed to be done for the fans. Naruto fighting with his dad, things like that. And I don't know if that's what it was and that's what was in his mind. He'll give us all these big moments before it comes to an end. But yeah, I kind of agree with your point.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not saying it's bad. I mean, Naruto is one of my favorite series. It's just the way it ends felt like a little inorganic. So we've talked about the strengths and series of the show and the manga as a whole, and you've mentioned some characters. You said that Naruto and Sasuke and Itachi, obviously, are some of your favorite characters. But are there any other supporting characters that you think really make the show and the manga shine?
Oh, there's lots that I love. I love Shikamaru and his genius. I think he's a great character. Gaara. I love Gaara as a twist on what would have happened to Naruto if he was never acknowledged, and Naruto coming through to him. I think he's a wonderfully done character. I love all of Naruto's teachers. I love his first father figure, Iruke. I love Jiraiya, who teaches him. I think Jiraiya's hilarious. He's a character that, if I could pick any character to go on a night out with, it would be Jiraiya, because you would have a whale of a time with him. I love Kakashi a lot. I think Kakashi is absolute genius. He's the first character that I really fell in love with, and his story with Obito is really, really well done. Seeing him get both Sharingans just for a moment was great, and seeing Kakashi as the Hokage before Naruto, I thought that was very, very fitting. He's a cool character. I mean, Kakashi may be my favorite character when I think about it.
So, we talked about the war arc, and you mentioned that you really do like the pain arc, and you think it would have been a good ending. But let me just ask you, what is it in your mind that makes the pain arc work so well?
Well, you have all the history between the characters. As I mentioned Jiraiya a lot, we have two of his students going against each other, and I think it's the philosophy the characters have on peace and the way they go against each other, and this is power scaling and increasing the scale of events done really well, because we go from, as you've said, like the little battles that we've had to suddenly the entire village being attacked. And I think Pain is an incredible character when you look at his motivations and his ideals and what he's trying to do here. I think he's a very, very cleverly written character, and his abilities are very, very frightening, and this really ups the ante in Naruto's entrance. I mean, when he just pops in, and I think it's Sakura who shouts out for Naruto, and then he's there, and he's just learned Sage Mode, and I just think that's a real, real well done arc.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to agree. One thing that bothers me about the pain arc, though, and I don't think I'm alone on this, and I just have to hear you. I just have to hear your opinion. What did you think about when everyone was resurrected afterwards? Would you have preferred if the people who had died had stayed dead, just to like keep that gravity of like, wow, we really just got obliterated? Or do you think that was the right move?
It kind of took away the impact of the deaths a lot, like especially Kakashi's death. When Kakashi died in that, like, I was in bits, and I thought, Naruto, he's just lost his best friend. He's just lost Jiraiya, and now he's lost Kakashi as well. It couldn't get any worse for the character of Naruto at that point. And then, it wasn't that bad, and it's kind of no lessons learned in a way. But I can see why they did that. I don't think it's the worst case of characters coming back to life I've seen. I mean, Black Clover did a lot worse, in my opinion, when they brought back the Wizard King.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's fatal to the series. I just remember, like you said, all these characters dying and then me feeling awful about it, and then they all conveniently came back, and I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this. But before we wrap this up, and to anybody who's listening, this is not a sucker punch. He knew this was coming. You mentioned before that you just read Naruto, and not too long ago, you had only just caught up to One Piece. So, as somebody who is only recently catching up to these two, what can you say to their rivalry? And what does each series, or if there is anything, what does one series do better than the other, and vice versa?
Firstly, they're both fantastic series. You can tell that they drove each other on and made each other better. When you have two this good, you increase things. In terms of what does one do better than the other, well, One Piece is undoubtedly the best manga of all time. I mean, the quality just never ever dipped into 956 chapters now. And what I will say about Naruto, and I'm not just going to say it doesn't compare in any way, there were moments where Naruto was as good as One Piece. The trouble was, it couldn't sustain that, and I don't think any manga ever has sustained its quality the way One Piece has. Both do characters extremely well, but I would say One Piece takes a lot more time to flesh their characters out, and give us like with Odin now. Odin's a character from history, but he's been fleshed out over time, the little hints of him, and now we're getting his story. We're going to spend a good few chapters focusing on his story, which will make us care about him. I think Naruto rushes introduction of characters, which makes us not care as much, like we just mentioned about the war arc. World building, obviously One Piece does a lot better. Fighting, you could probably make an argument that Naruto does have fights that maybe stand up to One Piece, the best ones, but it's the longevity. That's what One Piece did better. It's constantly great, whereas Naruto was great for 500 chapters, which is still better than 99% of mangas out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit everything in what I would probably say about their rivalry. You mentioned world building. I think that's something that everybody can agree on, is that One Piece does a phenomenal job of world building. And not to say that there isn't good world building in Naruto, but like I said, we're kind of just like given a hint of what the world's like, and we're hearing about all these like worldwide wars in the world, and then we really don't hear or see, actually we don't see these other nations until the very end, whereas with One Piece it's like island by island, but somehow we're like constantly seeing the whole world, and it feels like such a small world but such a big world at the same time, and just the sense of adventure and like you said, longevity. Like, we're almost 1,000 chapters in, and it feels like we still don't know so much about the world. So the world building, I would definitely say, is where One Piece has the stronger side. But you mentioned fights, and just briefly, what would you say? Would you say that One Piece in general has the better fights, or would you say Naruto? Because they both do a really good job with fights, but at the end of the day, I think just because on a level of intensity, the One Piece fights are better done. But what would you say?
I think what it is that drives One Piece fights is the emotion behind them. Like, if you were just going to look at a fight for how it looked, maybe you could say Naruto can compete, but it's the emotion and the story behind a One Piece fight that makes it magical. I think when you watch or read Naruto like I did, the big fights stand up to One Piece fights. Like the first Sasuke Naruto fight, that was the best fight in the series for me, and that really stood up to a One Piece fight. But the thing is with One Piece is every fight is of that standard, and it's very unfair to Naruto to be up against something like that, because if you were going to compare Naruto to another classic shonen, say Dragon Ball, I would say Naruto does a much better job than Dragon Ball does. Not in terms of the action you see, but in terms of the story and the emotion behind the fight, which is what makes a fight special. But when you compare it to One Piece, nothing really compares.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's kind of hard to compare the two, because even though One Piece has lasted a really long time, technically it's not a finished story, whereas Naruto has been done for a while now, not including Boruto, which we won't get into. But I think that was a really good comparison of the two, and I appreciate you doing something that isn't easy to do. And so, just to close out this video, let's return to the beginning question. Would you say, after 20 years and after you finally watching or reading, is Naruto worth it 20 years later?
Well, I'm somebody who reads a lot of modern shonen. I read Black Clover, I read Demon Slayer, I read My Hero Academia, and Naruto is as good, if not better, than the majority of modern series. You can tell that they've drew inspiration from it, and the majority of the series that are out now have not surpassed it. They may do one day, but at the moment, I don't think any of the big shonen that are new shonen, new gen shonen, have surpassed Naruto. I don't know, do you think they've got better than it?
Naruto inevitably has left its impact. I constantly find myself comparing new shonen to Naruto, especially with Sasuke. Sasuke's left his mark as like the archetype of the edgy character. So whenever we get these new shonen and we meet characters like Bakugo, or we meet characters like Killua, I'm constantly like comparing them to Sasuke and like, okay, how are they doing the edgy character? How are they doing like the smart character? And then, like we've been talking about, I think Naruto, with those emotional backstories, has undoubtedly influenced the mainstream shonen industry. So whenever I watch these shows, I'm like comparing their emotional impact to shows like Naruto. Um, but yeah, I think personally, it's still worth reading 20 years later. I mean, the artwork in the manga is beautiful, and while the anime has its ups and downs, ultimately the anime is still amazing to watch. Um, but I really can't think of a reason why, if you're like a younger kid or if you're just somebody like you who never got into it, I really can't think of a reason why not to start 20 years later.
No, not at all. And as I say, there's not really a modern shonen that I would say is better than it. There's older shonens that I would say are better, but nothing that's ongoing really outdoes it, apart from One Piece in Shonen Jump I'm talking about. So that really shows that it stood the test of time. I think shonens like My Hero Academia, like Black Clover, like Demon Slayer, have the potential to get better, but so far they're not produced to 500 chapters like Naruto's first 500 chapters.
All right, final question, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you think you'll read or watch Boruto?
Yeah. I'm not ready for the journey to end. I've just been watching the movie. That's like the bridge between the series. The last Naruto that's what I think the title was. I'm ready to see more of it, and I've heard the manga's good, but the anime is not apparently very good. But I'm going to form my own opinion on it and see if I do like it. It's only 37 chapters, I believe, so I can bash that out in a couple of hours and see if I like it. I hope I like it, and if I do, I'll probably be doing reviews on it, because I wish that I was a YouTuber when Naruto was pumping out chapters like that. And hopefully I like Boruto, but I've heard mixed things, and that's kind of been kind. I've heard a lot of bad things about it.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, the answer you gave is perfect, which is, I've heard some things, but you know what? I'm going to get my opinion. And I think that's ultimately why we have these toxic conversations on Twitter, is because everyone just regurgitates what they hear other people say rather than putting the time in to actually sit down, watch the show, read the manga, and get their own opinion. So I'm really glad to hear that you're going to give it a chance. I personally still need to find the time to sit down and watch Boruto, because I watched the Naruto anime, but I was discouraged to watch Boruto, and I put it off, but I've been meaning to get into it. So, Mark, thank you very much for this talk. I was dying to hear your thoughts. Do you have anything you want to say before we close out?
I just think everybody should read this manga if they haven't. For me, I know that I've read a good manga when I'm sad that it's finished. Like, now that I've read it all, I'm kind of sad that there's no more chapters with these amazing characters, which is exactly the reason I'm going to get into Boruto, hopefully. So yeah, just give it a chance, guys. That's my view. If you've got time to read something, you may as well read one of the greats.
Beautifully said. Mark, thank you very much. Guys, make sure to check out his channel. He does Black Clover and One Piece reviews every week on top of other amazing videos. This has been another video from Shonen Ouji. Thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.